I was joking around that shorts better run for cover because of the announcements around new factory, new earnings and market entry in Europe. And what NIO announced today is super huge, it's exceeding my expectations, so watch this. So as I have previously rumored, NIO finally officially kicks off their second factory. They call it the NIO Park, and today was the ceremony where they presented the NIO Park, which is a big industry park which they have manufacturing for cars, but also a big base for suppliers. And notably, this event was attended by, big party secretaries, the governor of Anhui, the party secretary of Hefei, and so on. So a really big demonstration by local politicians, quite high level, and also a big number of them. Usually in China, you would expect like at least one of those persons to show off at such kind of a ceremony. The fact that so many of them are actually attending the ceremony shows the big local politician support. And this is something really important to have and shows also the importance of this project, not only for NIO, but for the entire province and also, for China ultimately. As mentioned in the press release here, the NIO Park is, kind of a vehicle industry cluster. So they're gonna have research and development for vehicles. They're gonna have the core parts and components that are gonna be produced there. They'll work on autonomous driving and also, have just this value chain of different companies there, what they call key supporting enterprises that are not necessarily from NIO, but they all sit in this 16,950 acre park. And with this, NIO can achieve a very high scale, a very short ways for the different suppliers. So this will have cost benefits. Allegedly, they can save thousands of RMB per car produced solely by the fact that now everything is so close and dense together. And so some of the specs that they announced is they will have 10,000 R&D personnel, 40,000 technical workers, 1 million vehicles of annual capacity, a 100 gigawatt battery production, I guess. And a yearly output, and that's interesting to see, of around 500 billion renminbi, so that's roughly 77 billion US dollars annually in terms of turnover. So this is more than I expected. I publicly announced before that, with the second factory, I think that NIO will have a combined capacity of 600,000 annual capacity, so 300,000 of the first JAC NIO plant, and now a second plant which will have around 300,000. But now they're speaking here of 1 million vehicles that can just come from this industry park. And I saw rumors about this before, but I wasn't quite sure like how legit they are. And now this would bring the total NIO capacity to 1.3 million annual capacity. So that's a big spicy doubling of my initial assumption about what NIO can produce with those two factories. Now a little bit on background. So we saw in the beginning of 2021 that JAC together with NIO, they signed this letter of intent, which is basically about building a new joint venture between NIO and JAC. In this plan, they already speak about, the business scope is the manufacturing process, research and development, and so on. Basically, that was the blueprint to what was announced today. So my best guess is so that this is the the underlying plan and agreement between JAC and NIO. And this basically tells you also that the cooperation between the partnership between NIO and JAC is going to stay the same way as it has been in the past years. So mainly JAC possibly taking over the care of producing, manufacturing. I guess they will also be in charge of building the factory. The factory and this industry park, in my point of view, will be owned by this JAC NIO joint venture. So it's not wholly owned by NIO, but technically NIO will be having like the personnel on there. They will be in charge of the operations and so on. But JAC will bring in the years of expertise in terms of vehicle production. We can see those high quality vehicles that have been already produced in this partnership so far. And this seems like a perfectly working cooperation model here. And let's speculate a little bit. I think it will also have a lean impact on NIO in terms of the investment which they have to take. I expect that a vast bit of the investment necessary for this capacity will actually be taken over by JAC. So this is the state-owned factory and producer which is building this partnership with NIO here. So that means it will possibly be lean on in terms of operational cost for NIO, or in terms of investment cost at least, for having this factory ready. But on the other hand, this also means that NIO is not entirely owning that, but factually, they are working together so closely that it's you can say that it's kind of partly owned by NIO. And of course, most of those cars that are coming out there will be NIO cars. It's open whether or not there might be other brands rolling off these factory lines then as well. For instance, we have rumors about that NIO might introduce a second brand, which will not be the NIO brand, but more towards low-cost vehicle that will be a new brand, but maybe owned by NIO as well. So in order to not disrupt their current premium image with the NIO brand, so maybe at some point they will kind of also have those kind of cars being produced at this factory on top of that. And what I think will happen is possibly that NIO is going to introduce the ET5, so a smaller sibling of the ET7, maybe similar to a Model 3 type of car, still premium, but maybe a smaller sedan that I guess will be produced at this new plant. Well, to give you some sort of scale, if we compare this NIO Park to the Tesla mothership Fremont factory, you can see Fremont factory has around 370 acres and 10,000 employees. This new NIO Park will have more than 16,950 acres, 10,000 people only for R&D, and 40,000 technical workers. So you can see the scale is really quite big. But of course, this doesn't mean that NIO is now going into the business of competing with scale of Tesla in terms of having gigafactories all over the world. It's more like, in my views, a catching up with what they want to do, right? They want to produce more than 1 million vehicles soonish. That's the goal by Li Bin. I think the factory could be built in a time span around 1 to 3 years, to be not too specific right now. China speed, they can surprise on building something like this within a year, but given the scale of this factory, until it's fully complete, let's anticipate 2 years, maybe 3 years for the entire build out. As you can see from the images, it's not only about manufacturing, it's almost a little bit like a small city. I guess maybe people can even live there and work there. But it's also about lifestyle, of course, this very important brand aspect of NIO. So this type of flagship store or NIO house, even in a larger capacity here. And it almost looks a little bit like, well, once again, Apple in terms of the Apple campus. This looks like it's going to be, the NIO campus, and also have this lifestyle aspect to it. So as my patrons already know, I already published my new NIO business model in which I modeled NIO till the year 2030, make a business case, all the business case assumptions to it, and also came up with a new, work in progress valuation price target for the next coming years. So if you're interested in that, or if you value the content, please consider to become a patron where you can get such kind of information. But just to give you a sneak peek, I calculate that by 2024, NIO will be produced roughly 1.4 million cars annually. So within the next 3 years, I expect NIO to break through the 1 million cars annually produced. So with those plans announced today, that really aligns quite well with those business case plans that I'm having there for NIO. And it's in a way just a start, because obviously NIO will progress from there. And I think it won't be the last NIO Park or the NIO factory that we will see. But for now, this gives them solid capacity for the next couple of years. So it's now all about execution, building the factory, ramping up production, selling it, growing as a brand, going overseas and so on. So lots of exciting stuff to go, and it's really interesting to see how NIO manages to execute on that. Just 1 year ago, NIO was on the verge of bankruptcy. Now they can pull off such kind of projects and can really see that the vision for NIO is quite big. So it's not a dwarf anymore. NIO is progressing to become a huge player, and in my point of view, as I'm always outlining, possibly one of the first premium brands from China with a triple-digit billion market cap, but also being successful and being perceived positively in the West, not just as a Chinese copycat, but in this sense, now Chinese innovation made in China, exported to the world. So with that, excited about today's NIO earning call, the NIO earnings for Q1 and so on. Possibly we'll have more details on this factory. What does it mean for the finances also? Will it have big implications for NIO? Maybe some surprises, maybe even negative surprises also for the Q2 regarding the chip shortages, but also maybe on the business impact of that, so on. Let's see, it's going to be exciting. It's not going to be an easy way, but you can clearly see that NIO has a plan for 2025 and beyond that. So thank you guys for watching. See you in my NIO earnings videos, and yeah, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel.